You're listening to the Today's Conveyancer podcast, the leading source of information for residential property lawyers in England and Wales. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up to our free newsletter at todaysconveyancer.co.uk. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Hello and welcome to the Today's Conveyancer podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by CEO of Conveyancing Expert, Gavin Wall, and experienced conveyancer and now founder of Aconveyancing, Natalie Moore. Today we are going to be talking about the introduction of the 4-day working week, which both organisations have implemented in their own businesses, and we've got a few questions for you guys about some of the practicalities around that. So thank you very much indeed for joining us today. I'm going to come to you first, Gavin. I think the 4-day week seems to be sort of growing in popularity. We've seen it in other parts of the world with some success as well. So while the idea of we know where the idea of the 4-day week came about, but what was it that was particularly appealing for you when it came to looking at implementing it in your business?
Thanks, David. For us, it was recognition of the team and their efforts. And there was actually a soft trial that's been going on for several years and we'd never really considered, which is that a number of our team had childcare commitments or they wanted to spend more time with the family. And we found that the people who was doing that was taking, say, a Monday off to spend time with the children, but they was actually getting through exactly the same work as everyone else in the firm. So over a period of time, we realised that paying them less than the other members would be wrong. And sure enough, as we started rolling it out more and testing it more, we found that people were making the same kind of profit for the firm, but were much, much happier in themselves.
Isn't that interesting that it was almost inadvertent?
Absolutely, there's nothing deliberate.
Natalie, tell us about your experience. You're looking at implementing it in your business.
Yeah, so, and it's really interesting to hear Gavin's reason, and I can totally agree and see how that can happen because, you know, conveyancers, they are very hardworking and they don't work a 9-to-5 job. They work for their clients and to meet their clients' needs. So our introduction was probably a little bit different, really, because we're a relatively new company and sort of growing and recruiting. We were looking at how we could almost recognise the hard work that our staff provide. And, you know, having been a conveyancer, it's a really, really tough job. And I think it's very under-recognised and underappreciated. But we work relentlessly. And we've gone through a really tough 2 years of, you know, dealing with the stamp duty deadlines and the influx in the housing market. So for us, it was really at the end of the last year, looking back at how hard everybody had worked, how fed up people were, how people were looking to leave the industry, which is really scary because we're in very short supply of good conveyancers. So it's kind of recognising these people are working really, really hard. These people are potentially close to burnout across the industry. And when we were interviewing people, there was an element of responsibility that I can't see people working to these extremes, and we as an industry have a duty to look after our employees. So for me, it was kind of what can we do to recognise that hard work. So rather than people come in, same firm, you know, different caseload, it's, you know, leading that change in the industry. So the whole journey of stop this drive to the bottom on fees, look after the staff that you've got, bring your fees back up, provide more support and reduce the caseloads for conveyancers and help them get that work-life balance correct.
It's really pleasing to see that issue is being taken seriously by the legal sector, which traditionally, you know, has been quite slow to cotton on to. It's not really a fad, is it? But sort of cotton on to some of these opportunities that come up. It's interesting to hear you both talk about the fact that actually this was almost staff driven in the sense that you wanted to look after the people that you've got in your businesses. What was the response from the staff? Gavin, to you first.
Yeah, it's interesting because the consultation, when you do this, you still have to do a consultation on the contract and the change. We've never done a consultation so fast in our lives. We expected it to take a month, and it took about 4 hours. Absolutely, the staff are embracing it because we've not done a formal 4 days. What we're actually doing is 32 hours over, however they want to do it over the week. And this is to cope with ebbs and flows in their own lives. So if it's a sunny afternoon on a Thursday or Friday, they get to go to the beer garden, and they might decide to pick up the work another day during the week. Or if, I don't know, they have a childcare issue that pops up, they can change it. But a lot of the team are very quickly getting into choosing things to keep them occupied. So one of the parties today, I was just in a meeting, has joined a new management course he's going to use that extra day for. Another one's learning to be a teacher. So the response has been overwhelming. They absolutely love it.
I think initially our response from staff, it was a bit mixed really. So we allowed them to be involved in our consultation and part of the process. So we have kind of ambassadors in each office that we were like, hear out your office, what are their thoughts on it? But overall, it was really positive, and they feel involved in the trial and, you know, prepared to work through any challenges that we face. We've just come into the end of our consultation, so they're, you know, because the consultation, we took it very seriously, we've kept them involved. By now they're all on board, and we've also given the option to opt in or opt out. So we're not making anybody do this. We're saying if you want this, we're willing to offer it you. And I think, you know, the legal industry is quite, or known to be quite behind in the times. And the last couple of years, it's changed quite significantly. And however, whether you decide to try it or not try it, you know, mine and Gavin's firms might be very different, and we might have implemented it in different ways, but it's worked for Gavin, and I hope that our trial works for us. But if we don't try things, it's never going to change, is it?
And that leads me really neatly on to my next question, which is probably the same question that a lot of people have about this, which is, what are the dynamics of the 4-day week? Do you, for example, cover Monday to Friday? Do you close the office? Gavin, you've indicated you're going to do 32 hours over those 4 days. Do you anticipate, Natalie, that you'll be doing 40 hours in those 4 days? How do you guys sort of see this working?
Our working week, we've reduced it to 34 hours across 4 days for those people that want to opt in. So our office remains open the same hours, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. And we've actually done a sort of rota to make sure that there's cover in place at all times, and that clients, you know, if they need assistance, there's assistance there to provide it. So that's kind of our dynamics. We're rolling our trial out across all offices. We're given, it's applied to full-time employees for the first stage of the trial, and then we will review part-time, so that ultimately we want everybody to benefit from it. But yeah, 34 hours across the 4 days, and that's an extra hour for each of the working day.
Gavin, what's your experience?
So we've actually put the trust back on the case managers. As Natalie said before, conveyancers are a rare breed in that they're really organised, they're really hardworking, they never let a client down, and they put their all into it. So for us, we went the other way in saying, listen, you're doing 32 hours, work within your team. So there's 3 case managers, an assistant, and then they have team support who's off-site. And we've said, work your rota out between yourselves. We literally need to cover between Monday and Friday, only because the industry is not yet ready for it. I think clients still want to speak to us. We certainly love our relationship with our agents, and we want to keep that strong. And if they're under pressure to give an answer to someone on a Monday, we need to have cover to do that. So we've changed our systems, but we've not actually put in hard and fast rules, because the rota was to be something that we'd have to manage. And we've literally chucked it back to them and said, look after yourselves. And actually saying to someone, we trust you, is having the effect that they're living up to that.
That's a really positive response. And I think, Gavin, you've kind of touched on the next question, which is, about what happens to client communications, to agent communications, queries that come from the banks? What is the expectation on staff on the days when they're not in?
So for us, the way our system works is every item of post is scanned into a case management system. The case manager still manages that file, that client, that relationship with the client, the agent, the other solicitors. But if they're not in for a day, any one of the team can instantly look on our system and give an urgent update if needed. Truthfully, if you've set out your stall at the start and said to a client, listen, I'm not going to be working the next 3 Mondays, so if you need me, call me on a Tuesday. And they've told the agents, because they've all got good relationships with agents and clients, you don't have any pushback. But there is emergency or contingencies in place in case something does crop up.
Natalie?
And I'd fully back what Gavin's just said there. And from our point of view at Aconveyancing, we've got values that are embedded in the staff. One of those values is we are one team, so we work together. And it's the whole, Richard Branson model, look after your staff will look after your clients. So ultimately, I think the long and short of it is effective communication. That's what lies at the heart of making this work for staff and clients.
I sense that you've both adopted quite a bit of technology that's going to support this endeavour, though.
Absolutely. We're using Proclaim at the minute, which is it's a good solid case management system, but we've heavily invested in Proclaim to make sure it does a lot of this stuff automatically. And then there's process drivers in the office as opposed to computer systems. Even things like the way that calls come into the office, who they go to, how that's picked up, what the response is when someone gets that call. All of this process drive gives a better customer experience. And by customer, I mean the client, the estate agent and the other solicitor. I mean, I'm really interested in this entire conversation. Natalie, for example, I'm going to be reaching out to afterwards and saying, is there a way we can work together on different files? Because that's how we build relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this industry, they see other firms as competitors. And again, it's all about working together. And that's what conveyancers want. So you've got, unfortunately, sometimes it's the leaders of some firms that resist change. And, this conversation it's been around the conveyancers. They will make this work. They will make sure, as they always do, that clients are serviced. And they're very aware that the work comes from agents. So they will keep that effective communication with agents. And ultimately, the reason that the global 4-day week is to make people more productive and happier. It's about balance.
Natalie, you've touched on productivity. Do you anticipate then that you're going to see an increase in productivity? You don't see that there's going to be a decrease in productivity?
I hope not. It's down to the team. It's down to what the team want, and they'll make it work. We will obviously oversee the trial and review data throughout and at the end of it. But I just want people to be happy. I want staff to be happy. I want clients to be happy. And so long as the business runs from a business point of view, as long as it runs and it's profitable, then they're the key factors for me.
Gavin, what's your experience been around productivity?
It is still early days, but I use the term holiday focus a lot when I'm explaining it to other people now. Any person who's ever worked in conveyancing feels the commitment to the job. And if they're due to go to, Skegness for 2 weeks, that 3 days before you go on holiday is the most focused you'll see a person working. They get through weeks of work, they tidy up the files, everyone's updated. Well, that's what we're finding is happening. People are absolutely more focused during the time that they're working. There's less downtime. And then they finish in with that sense of achievement and really enjoying their break. So, yeah, so far, so good. I haven't got enough data yet to work out the changes. But as Natalie alluded to earlier, realistically, what we should be doing is looking at making sure that the fees are right to make this work so that as a business, it's successful. And for the team, it's successful.
You both have identified that actually that some of the driver behind this decision has been looking after your own staff and looking after their well-being and their welfare. Natalie, you talked a little bit about some of the interviews that you've done. And Gavin, I've seen you quite active on LinkedIn as well, on the recruitment front. Has the introduction of the 4-day week had a positive impact on recruitment for you both?
So we're implementing this trial for the welfare of our existing employees as opposed to a recruitment tool. But I think naturally you are going to get an influx because there's so many unhappy people out there. There's so many people that are fed up, that have worked the last 2 years and slogged away for no or little reward. And like I said and started this interview, it's a brutal industry. Unless you've worked in it or witnessed it, it's no wonder that people are leaving it. And some people can't leave it because there's no alternative for them. So it's really about bringing change. Productivity lies within smoother transactions. And the only way to get those is to increase the fees and reduce volumes that people are dealing with.
And for us, David, yes, it has had a positive impact on recruitment. We've certainly had more people interested in speaking to us. I'm not so sure. I mean, the 4-day week is just part of a culture. And we've really been looking at our culture, not just the way we deal with clients, but the way we deal with each other in the office, the way we deal with estate agents, the way we deal with other solicitors. And I think that's more attractive to people along with the 4-day week. It's knowing that we're committed to making sure they're well trained and very well supported, and have that family team feel going on. So, yeah, I think it's had a positive impact on recruitment.
So here's the crux of the question. Will you be adopting the 4-day week?
David, I'm a man. I've not worked in a full week in my entire life. Natalie, she said
and I'm a workaholic, so I can't embrace it until I know it works.
There we are. Joking aside, absolutely, I will adopt it. But that's partly because we've been working for the last 10 months really on making sure we have a really good structure in place, so that the management team, all of us, can make sure we have that time. We have some strong policies on that. If one of us is on leave, even me, they're not allowed to ring me at all. It's that simple. As soon as we hit a 5 o'clock deadline, you don't ring a colleague. And it's designed to stop this mental approach to conveyancing where people will be sat there at 10 o'clock at night finishing a report on title. We don't want that.
Yeah. And just to back that, I try and, 5 o'clock, you're out the office, the lights are off, because history says people, and like Gavin, they're working through the night or taking files home with them, and I've done it over the years, so it'll be very hard for me to adapt to it. And I think that's what conveyancers will struggle with. But ultimately, we've got to find that balance. And, even for myself, I need to adapt to it, because had I started my career with this, then it wouldn't be so hard to find the balance now. But we're so accustomed to working long hours, and it's a stressful job. So we need to need to change the industry. We owe it to the industry. It can't continue like this. It won't, because it won't attract any new talent.
Absolutely. And I'm happy for you to hold me accountable, Natalie, and myself to you. So we make sure
Yeah, it's great, and that's what's nice as well. That people are open to talking and helping. And a couple of people have contacted me saying, can't wait to hear some feedback about how the trial's working, and we'll share that feedback and we'll share our findings, because we encourage people and invite people to embrace this change.
Yeah. Well,
there you are. In 6 months' time, we'll have you back on the podcast, and we'll talk about how things have gone, what lessons.
I might be on a beach.
What lessons you've learned, and what you can impart to the industry, because I on a very personal level, I do very much hope that it's a success for you both, for all the reasons that you've identified, and certainly whilst you've both underplayed the recruitment element, I think that's going to play a very big part in your future success as well. Because in order to achieve what you guys are talking about, higher fees, lower case loads, you need to throw more people at it, and you need to throw more good people at it. My thanks to Gavin and to Natalie for their insights into the 4-day week or variations of it. Thank you very much indeed to everybody for listening. You can download this podcast on your preferred podcast player or get it from the Today's Conveyancer website. And if you're not already subscribed, you can do so on Today's Conveyancer. Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you both.
And thank you very much indeed for listening.
You're listening to the Today's Conveyancer podcast, the leading source of information for residential property lawyers in England and Wales. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up to our free newsletter at todaysconveyancer.co.uk. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.